Welcome everybody. My name is Sofia Quintero and I'm the CEO and co-founder at EnjoyHQ. And today we have also Dylan Ortega. He's our growth manager at EnjoyHQ. Today we're talking about a very interesting topic, very hot topic in the UX research community. It's all about research repositories. But most importantly, why are people talking about this so much? Why it became a hot topic within the community? So we're going to be exploring a little bit what are the reasons why researchers are looking into better ways to optimize and streamline their research workflow, and especially how to scale that research work so more people in the organization can tap into the insights that they are generating. So this is a very interesting topic. I'm fascinated by it, and let's have a good conversation. Right, Dylan?
Let's do it, Sophia. And I think what we want to do first is go through some of the main challenges that research teams face today and talk about them in the context of a research repository. So if we think about one of the first challenges that comes to mind that you and I hear all the time, it's this notion that research data lives in multiple tools. You know, the video interviews and transcriptions and all this other information that can be used for analysis is just spread out and siloed. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
But actually, let's step back a little bit more. The reason why research data live in multiple places is that UX research and the UX function in organizations became a crucial part of the business, became a competitive advantage. Businesses no longer can ignore the fact that they need to get closer to customers, they need to understand them, and they need to develop solutions for them faster. So as the UX function in businesses becomes more and more important, and in businesses are investing more into better user research, what happens is that the market has evolved. A ton of new companies have been born from this kind of wave of UX developments. So you have now very specialized tools everywhere. So there is tools to recruit candidates, tools to do user testing sessions, tools to do surveys, tools to do any type of research study that you like. And then on top of that, you have the regular channels that customers use to talk to businesses, like customer support systems, sales systems, market research systems as well. So suddenly you have a bunch of channels that customers are using to talk to you as a business. And on the other hand, you have a ton of different tools, specialized tools that researchers are using today in order to understand customers better and faster. So that is like a, kind of double-edged kind of problem, because from one side you have better tools and specialized tools, and on the other hand you have to be jumping between all those tools to get the job done. So it becomes very cumbersome and time-consuming to try to find the data and the information that you're gathering, consolidate it in different places, and then try to make sense of it in a way that then the business can use. So generally speaking, UX becoming a competitive advantage with businesses brought this beautiful kind of a wave of excellent specialized tools, but at the same time brought all this complexity when it comes to the workflow. And that's one of the biggest challenges for research teams today.
Right, and I think the one of the biggest value adds of a repository is just being able to centralize all of that information. And this kind of goes into the second challenge that we want to talk about, this notion that research data and feedback are disconnected. And so if you want to do good user research, you should probably be incorporating feedback into your workflow. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Sure, and it is all about context. So if you're working in a research team and maybe you are the only researcher, just a couple of researchers, there's a ton of work to do. So you have just so much time to go and speak to maybe 5-10 customers and do in-depth interviews or other type of methods that might be, they might take a lot of time. And because you cannot talk to 100 people at the same time unless you use something like a survey, you want to be able to bring those 10 interviews into the context of what it means within a larger user base. So you want to be able to recognize problems that your customers are experiencing and try to transpolate that. Okay, let's talk to these 10 people, but these findings that are coming from these interviews, can we understand if those findings are actually something that a lot more people are experiencing within our user base? Or can we easily identify 10 customers that experience this specific problem so we can source those customers and talk to them directly. So being able to have visibility on both the proactive research that you do with people when you have deep conversations, but also the inbound data that is coming at you, all these customers interacting and actually telling you the problems that they have, being able to access that, it is very important. Another point that goes around context is that generally speaking, product managers tend to look at data and try to understand the impact, the customer segments, anything that we're going to do, any feature that we're going to prioritize, how many people are going to be positively affected by it, how many, what is the overall impact of whatever we're building. So if you are a researcher, you want to be able to put those insights in the context of perhaps a specific customer segment and being able to say, well, we found all of this because we narrowed down into this specific segment that we know we're focusing on this quarter, for example. And having that ability to see the insights from a depth perspective, or being able to see insights in a way that we went really, really deep with these 10 people, but at the same time, we know that that correlates with a very specific segment and this number of users or customers, it helps tell a better story about your research outputs, and it helps you be able to have better conversations with people that ultimately will use that information for decision making, like product managers, like stakeholders in general. So it's all about being able to play within deep research and also like volume and what is going on with the user base in general. So that's why customer feedback and user research work so well together. They are intertwined. They need to be treated differently because you have different methods to answer different questions, but you cannot ignore the fact that your customers are talking to you from so many channels, and there are like very interesting gems and insights within that data too.
Absolutely. And I think, Sofia, it would help to add a little bit of color and actually show people what a centralized repository looks like and how you have all of that data kind of coming to you. So this is a good example of what it looks like to centralize feedback from, say, NPS surveys or feedback that's submitted by your team members via Slack. And also the ability, as you've mentioned, to quantify the information that's contained within the feedback that comes to you so that you can identify not only which users are responding with specific feedback, but you can also help those product managers and help your stakeholders understand the scope of the problem that's being addressed.
Absolutely, and it's all about, again, context. The more context you have, the easier it is to make decisions, the easier it is to have conversations, and the easier it is to increase the impact of your research work. So being able to play with both qualitative and quantitative information in order to tell a better story is super crucial. Absolutely.
Great, should we move on to the next challenge?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, I think this is the one that you and I might hear most frequently. It's really difficult to collaborate across multiple research projects without a research repository. And we speak to research teams who not only deal with siloed data, but who deal with siloed research, basically. They don't always have insight into other research that's being done or even past research that could help them answer their questions.
Absolutely, and there is an interesting element there, which is remote working, right? So more and more organizations are hiring across the world, they're expanding in different geographies, and you find that each company now, especially the ones that have more established research teams, they have researchers in multiple countries working in multiple products. So that adds another layer of complexity to the process. So what you want to do is being able to build on top of the knowledge and the research that other people are executing across the organization. So if some researchers are in Europe researching one part of the user experience and other ones are here in US and in another part of the world, you want to be able to tap into that knowledge, and you want to be able to not reinvent the wheel. So let's say you're working on an onboarding problem or challenge. You want to know who else have worked on that in the past. You want to know what research has been done. You want to see whether or not that's relevant to your work and how you can use it if effectively is relevant, how you can use it to enhance your own research process and your own context of the problem. And so your research then becomes another piece of the puzzle for the next person in another geography, in another product, to be able to tap into your sort of insights. So it is about visibility and transparency, and it is about the continuity of the the insights and how you build that knowledge over time. So I think remote working, having more people in different locations, expanding into multiple products and building the UX function in the organization, all of this is conducive to build more complexity in the process. So you want to find ways to eliminate that complexity and make it really easy for everybody to tap into insights across the entire organization.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's helpful to see this in a story. So in our platform, insights are essentially pulled out during the analysis phase, and you can create a story that allows you to provide context for that particular insight. And so someone can come into the story section and they can search for, like you said, onboarding research projects that have been done in the past. And they can also collaborate with their teammates in a particular platform like this, where they can tag those team members and just have a conversation about the data. And that's always really helpful.
Yeah, also I would like to add there that having the ability to refer back to a specific data points, so you can see also the context of where that data came from is important. So if you browse that story, if you go down a little bit, I think this story has different data points. So we have now here a report or a graph based on the different sources, and we might have videos and customer reports as well embedded within that story. And the interesting thing about being able to bring all that data together is that if you click on a specific customer quote and read more, in the read more there, exactly. So whenever you embed information into, at least EnjoyHQ, you always have the chance to see the source. It's never isolated. So a customer quote will have, somehow a way to get back to a customer transcript, for instance. And that also enables all the researchers to see that information within the context that it was created and where it came from. And that is super, super crucial. Every time we talk to researchers, they are concerned about not being able to show the full picture as to how we come up with these insights. And I think having the chance to only centralize the data to increase visibility, but also once you centralize it, being able to tie all the knots together and being able to say, well, this specific transcription that belongs to this research project that this person did in this product area. All of that, if you like, metadata about that insight itself is super crucial for context. So I just wanted to add that because it's something that we hear a lot from researchers.
Absolutely. Yeah, should we move on to the next challenge?
Yes, indeed.
Okay. So this is something that I know is frustrating for a lot of researchers. We know that they'll present their insights to stakeholders or even potentially a wider audience, such as their entire organization, and it can be easy for the insights that they pull out of their research to be taken out of context.
Yeah, and it's very, very tied together or related to what we just discussed about being able to go back to where exactly this data point came from. And the concern normally here is about, trying to avoid building this culture where you use data to basically make your point, to support your point of view, as opposed to use data to invalidate or validate an assumption. So what you want to do is build a culture in the product team that looks at data as a tool to make better decisions and not as a tool to move their personal agendas or to be able to justify maybe stakeholder decisions and so on. And this is very tricky, and it has to do with the culture of the organization. But by having transparency in terms of where the data live, where it came from, who is the customer behind it, who has access to that data, and so on, you are eliminating, or at least trying to reduce the friction about that can come from taking information out of context and maybe using a quote in the wrong way, or trying to make a case when there's actually not a case at all for building a feature, and so on. So this is a tricky thing. It has to do with culture, but it also has to do with how transparent the organization is and how available the data is and how easy to reference data data points is. So it is a tricky one, but if you are building an internal tool for a repository or buying an external tool for building your research repository, you want to make sure that the data is structured in a way that is very difficult to take it out of context, and there is always a way for everybody in the organization to access that and see the history of how you came up with this. So I think that is a very important point.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, Sofia, as you mentioned, we've already kind of taken, the tour through the product and shown how that is manifested in EnjoyHQ, but there's just a bigger point there about companies wanting to be transparent, but if they don't have the tools or if they don't have a repository, it's really hard for them to live up to that part of their culture. It's difficult for them to enable, transparent communication and discovery within an organization if things are not centralized and if that context isn't there. All right, Sofia, and this challenge is something that we hear a lot as well. Research that was done in the past gets forgotten either because an organization doesn't have a good way for that research to live on, or researchers just don't have the ability to access that research that was done in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. This is something that is very common. Today, a lot of research teams are storing the research summaries, reports, and even raw data in document, systems, document management systems. And what happens is that these systems were not designed to connect the dots between the data that they are storing. So for instance, every company will use some sort of version of Google Drive, OneDrive, Dropbox, and so on. And the challenge with that is that you tend to structure your research insights and projects in a nested structure of folders, right? So this is a folder for projects. Inside the projects, you have the insights, and so on and so on and so on. Over time, you build this complicated sort of a structure, and when you have a new team member joining, that is a researcher, product manager, anybody that wants to know, what was the last time we did research on X, Y, and Z, or have we ever done research about something, they have to find their way around all these folders, and you kind of almost have to create a structure manual for them to find the information. So it becomes more and more complex, even if you do this on something like Confluence or any other tool that is an internal wiki. It has not been designed for you to find information quickly. It has not been designed to connect the dots between those documents in a way that is meaningful for finding user research insights. So that adds complexity. So what you really want to do is just to store that information in a way that is easy to browse and is easy to link together and is easy to collaborate. So it becomes fresh. So the problem with being forgotten is that as you have in these nested folders, it becomes a friction. So people don't want to go there and try to find the next thing. Sometimes it feels a lot easier just to do the research yourself. So what you want to do is just remove that friction and make it so simple for everybody to come to one place, enter a keyword, and find everything that they need to know about that specific topic. So that's what you're trying to do. So the fact that it gets forgotten is all about friction. So if you want to build a habit of stakeholders and product managers and designers and everybody in the organization to come and quickly go back into a place where they can find answers, if you want to create that kind of internal feedback loop, you have to make it very easy for everybody to access that information and tap into that knowledge, especially, I will say, connecting the dots, Dylan, which is something that we hear a lot. Like, how can I connect the insights from this research to the research that I'm doing today, and so on.
Right. And I think we do this really well with our connections, essentially. You can take a story or a finding and connect it to any other stories or insights that you've discovered in the past. If I click on this search bar here, all of the other stories are available for me to connect. And then I also love that I can see the connections visually in a graph here. So essentially the size of the dot is reflective of the amount of connections that this particular insight has. And I know, Sofia, for me, this is really helpful because, as you said, it's kind of like an internal feedback loop. I can come in and I can see how certain research insights have been pulled out and connected to past research. And then I can go down that particular rabbit hole and learn even more about our customers, which is the end goal of something like this.
Yeah, you're building engagement, right? Engagement with this data that tends to be very dense, so you can actually take people through a journey of discovering, what we know about customers, and to challenge as well the research you have done, and to be able to ask questions about it. So this is super important, and I think we have covered some of the most important or excruciating pain points that research teams go through, and the reason why people talk about research repositories so much today, because it's a very interesting way to solve the problem of visibility, access, and engagement with research data and research insights. So it is all about knowledge management. It's in being able to understand how you build organization that keeps learning from customers and keep making research part of the development process in a way that is continuous. So this is a very hot topic. It will continue to be. Research ops is an area that is growing, and it's very exciting, and it's all driven by researchers wanting to increase the impact of the research work. It's all driven by being able to serve the organization better by making those insights available to people that can actually make decisions on it. So if you're interested in research ops, if you're interested in how research repositories can help your research team, we're always happy to talk about it. This is a very fascinating topic, but generally speaking, I think this conversation is driven by these very sort of evident pain points. Before, we used to get used to the inefficiencies because that's how it's done, but now there are different ways to solve this problem, and research repositories are one.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Sofia.
All right, well, thank you very much, everybody, for listening to this, and we will talk very soon again. Bye.